Every MMO has its passive consumables that give bonuses to the player, be it for higher damage, higher survivability, or even for options like team support. Neverwinter has plenty of them to offer. I plan to highlight some of the best ones for all player levels, while also including some of the useful items that can help your dungeon delving a little bit easier. Let's take a look. How's it going, everyone? I'm Pro Vigilance, here with another video for you guys. Before we jump into things though, a reminder to hit that like button if you enjoy the video, and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Both help me grow the channel, and more importantly, reach out to a greater amount of the community. With all of that said, let's get straight into things. So, the purpose of this video is to go over some of the things that allow players to stack buffs for things in the game, such as event foods, guild foods, potions, elixirs, invocation blessings, scrolls, item buffs such as Forge Box or the Chain of Scales, the rested buff that comes from going to a campfire and getting your +1 to all your ability scores. You just step into the circle and it gives it to you. VIP hit points buff if you have VIP. There's a Diamond Blessing, which is a passive buff that you can stack. Potion of Dragon Slaying and Scroll of Dragon Protection. So we'll go through all of those, and down the road we'll highlight kind of which ones are going to stack with what and all that good stuff. So let's take a look at my inventory here. So to start, we have the red dragon glyph, and there's one for each of the colors of the dragons, at least the chromatic ones, and they all give unique abilities. But the main reason you want to use any of these right now, for DPS purposes, any of these first four would be good. They proc the Band of Air, and you see a lot of people using it right now. This last one is actually meant for healers. If you look there, it gives 10% extra outgoing healing, which is nice. And it doesn't actually specify outgoing healing, so if you're trying to go above that 90% outgoing healing, this might actually give that ability, since it doesn't specify outgoing healing. It just says it increases your healing by 10%. So there's ways that you can kind of over-proc that 90% outgoing healing. This would probably be one of those ways. Different kinds of overloads that I would also look into. You can get these from events that come throughout the year. You got the 5% hit points, you got the total 5% damage, 5% action point gain, and then this one gives two different stats of 5%, crit strike and accuracy. This one gives two defensive stats, crit avoidance and deflect chance, both 5% each. This one gives 5% damage reduction, and like I said, these are all obtainable from events. I would say if you're a tank, probably be good to run the physical damage reduction, possibly the hit points, and also this crit avoidance as well. Those are going to be your best survivability ones, and I consider these buffs because they're consumables. You can equip it to your character. It does have a combat timer, so I would remind you just to keep an eye on, when the timer is going to go away, because you will have to get another one of these at some point. But anything that has a timer basically is a consumable buff. There are some other buffs down the road that we'll talk about that give you things over time, but you can just reproc it again. If you're a DPS, I'd recommend the crit chance and accuracy. This one's fantastic for your stats. There's also the action point gain. If you have a build kind of like, I know a lot of wizards out there enjoy their action points. This could really help out with that. And if you like the 5% total damage bonus, if you're not going to run something like the dragon glyphs, this would make a good secondary to run. And when they do nerf the Band of Air, this will be a good one to switch to. For lower level players, these two enchantments here are examples of enchantments you can actually craft. Later on, I'll go and show you where you can craft these at. So these ones give action points, are the biggest reason you want to use these ones. If you notice in the bottom there, it says it allows you to additionally generate 1.25% of your AP each second, and this lasts for 8 seconds. So that's quite a bit of AP. If you combine that with the green version of it, which is the lesser version, it only gives you 0.5, but together they give you 1.75. So when using overloads, just keep in mind you don't want to stack two of the same type. As an example here, we've got the Dragon Slayer mark and the Dragon Ward mark. If I wanted to use these for the current content, which is dragons, I would not be able to run 2 Dragon Wards as an example, or 2 Dragon Slayers. Now, if I had a green version, which they do have at the guild when you go to buy these, and I'll show you again the inventory there later, the green one gives 5% damage, and this one gives 10%. So you could stack those two, and as long as they have the same name, but they're different rarities. But these are both good to run alternatively right now because it's dragon content. Just keep in mind that the guild overload enchantment vendor, he gives you different types of overloads. So if you want one for, fiends, he has that, or one for beasts, he has that one as well. Fey creatures, things like that. Next, we're going to actually get into some of these buffs that you would start taking when you're doing dungeon content. The overloads, they stay in the slots until they run out of time. So you're able to go ahead and slot those, but these you actually have to physically go and take at the beginning of your dungeons. Bowhammer's elixir here, you take that if you're a tank. You get that extra deflect and deflect severity. And that's 5% right there, another 2% essentially from the rating on deflection. If you're wanting to be a DPS character and take an elixir, the Wildstorm is a great one. This one's probably the most popular one. Gives crit severity 5%, 2000 crit strike. Sunlord's Gift, 2000 accuracy, 5% combat advantage. Steadfast Devotion, this is another tank one. I don't see a lot of people using this one because it's hard to get deflect severity. That's why a lot of people go foe hammers, but this is an alternative option that can give you 5% awareness, 2000 defense. Elixir of Corallin's Blood. You could get extra power from this one, but again, I don't see a lot of people running this one because it gives incoming healing. Now, as far as elixirs go, only one stacks. So you can't use like 2 of these, for instance, of different types. You can only use 1 type of elixir. Next, we have the event foods. These are foods that can be obtained from specific events throughout the year. We just had the Protector's Jubilee, and we currently have the Summerfest going on. Both of those events give out a lot of these kinds of foods, and I'll be going through all of them with you guys. Basically, each one's going to give roughly 5% of a stat in 2 different stat categories. Watermelon Sorbet gives 5% accuracy and power. This is probably one of the more popular ones. There's a secondary alternative I'll show you in a little bit, but basically you take whichever one gives you the stat percentages you need, ultimately. Fizzy Brew, this one gives movement speed by 10% and 5% awareness. This one's great for if you're a tank, you want that extra move speed to get in front of your allies, so go and grab that threat. The awareness helps as well. Or if you're just looking for a movement speed build, say you're grinding like Enchanting Stone 5s over in Dread Ring, this is something that you could take. Hot Wings gives crit severity and accuracy. Moki, and I might be mispronouncing some of these guys, but I'm going to do my best. Moki, 5% power and 5% additional max hit points. Good for tank or for DPS, whoever needs it. Squash Soup, 5% crit sev and crit strike. Caprice, 5% deflect and 5% max hit points. This one's actually probably like a favorite of most tanks. The extra hit points come in handy, and then on top of that, the extra deflect is really nice. Again, deflect and deflect severity tend to be a little bit harder to get, more so the severity than the actual deflect. As a fighter myself, deflect is pretty hard to get because it's not a part of my forte or anything, so. Nyan Gao, again, probably murdering some of these names, but I'm going to give it my best. Crit chance and deflect. This one's kind of unique because it gives a defense and an offensive stat that you don't typically see with buffs. I know for the fighter specifically, there's a ability that the more that your crit strike and your deflect are tied together, it gives you more of an ability, and this is kind of something you could take if you wanted to keep that more in line. Seed Bread, this one's more available from like the April Fowls event, where it has like the chickens and stuff like that, but you can also get it from the Elminster's lunchboxes and stuff as well. Power and defense, again, probably a good tank food if you wanted to use it. Grand Summer Feast. This one's popular because it kind of gives a little bit of everything. Max hit points, deflect chance, power, accuracy, crit chance, and crit severity. A good spread of different abilities. It's really nice to be able to kind of use this one if you've got your percentages kind of spread out and you only need a little bit in each category. Like I mentioned before, this one kind of combines multiple versions of the event foods and puts it into one. Light Wine, this one's move speed 5%, forte 5%. You won't get as much of the move speed as you do with something like Fizzy Brew. You know, I got 10% there. But if you wanted a cheaper version to go with and you're going again for a move speed build, this would probably be the one to go with. Otherwise, not very useful, but it's there as an option. Anniversary Ham. This one's kind of unique too because it gives stamina, and it's not just 5 or 10, it's 25%. So that's 25% more blocking, that's 25% more sprinting if you're a barbarian. If you're looking for more dodge, you can use Anniversary Ham for that. Most people will still go with the stats, and I don't blame you. Going with the stats is going to be, your best bet. But if you're doing something where you're stamina dependent, for instance, like the Enchanting Stone 5 farming I was mentioning earlier, Anniversary Ham is really good to go with for that. Those are all the event foods, and now we're on to potions. Potions, these could be crafted or they could be bought from vendors. But the ones I have here currently, the Flask Potency rank 3 plus 1s, these ones you can craft at your workshop. And since we're actually here, I'm going to go ahead and show you real quick just where you can find that. Now you're going to have Alchemy leveled up, and you're going to have to go down to the 17 to 18 level. Flask of Potency, rank 3. Now this one's going to require quite a bit of stuff, but you can send your people to go gather Drakehorn, Shimmerweed. You're going to have to craft a spring water or buy it on the auction house. Same thing goes for the fish oil. And then you got your volcanic salt, which I think you can actually send gatherers out to gather as well. And, when you craft it, we'll put in just a couple things here. It's not very expensive. It's 37 silver pieces with this artisan. It gives you 12 when you craft a single one. We do have the Professions event right now going on, double Professions, so it's actually a little cheaper than it normally would. This would be 40 instead of 20. But you can craft a lot of these, and they're very cheap on the auction house as well. The reason that you would want to use Flask of Potencies is it gives you a few stats with about 550 in each stat, and that's not really the main thing for it. The main thing is the 5% crit severity. There are not a lot of potions out there that give percentage. And I'm about to show you another one that I crafted as well for the tank side of things, if you decide you wanted to go the tank route. But Flask of Potency is good for kind of everyone out there. If you're DPS, you're a tank, you're a healer, that crit severity can come in handy, as well as the other bonus rating and the other stats as well. As a tank, you'd probably take this to get some extra damage, to be able to hold threat better. As a healer, you could get this to give out more heals, DPS, more damage, things of that nature. So as I mentioned before, we have the Crafted Potion of Deflect. This is a Mastercraft potion from the current Masterwork. This one gives 5100 as a +1, and basically this is something a tank would take. Now they do have other Masterwork versions of this. So as you can see, they have an accuracy version, a crit strike version, defense version, the deflect, which we have in our inventory, and then the power version. All of these at +1 give the same amount, 5100. So these potions do not stack with each other. Something else to keep in mind. If we take a potion of potency, we cannot take a crafted potion of deflect. And same thing goes for any of the other potions in the game, with the exception of the next one I'm about to show you. And just so you guys are aware also, elixirs are different than potions. And it'll tell you too. If you look on it, it says only one normal stat enhancing potion can be in effect at one time. Same thing says it for the elixir. Only elixirs can be in effect at one time, just one. So as I said before, some of the potions actually kind of stack with the other potions. And same thing goes for scrolls, things of that nature. This one just happens to stack with the potions. If I were to take this deflect potion and then take this dragon slaying potion, they stack. This one doesn't actually tell you that you can only take one. And I'm sure it's probably because it's very specific to the dragons. I haven't seen any other potions really out there like this. But if you see something that doesn't have the warning indicator saying only one stat enhancing potion, for example, can be used at one time, if you don't see that indicator at the bottom, there's a safe bet that maybe this will stack with some of the other stuff you have. And I'll show you a way that you can tell later. These potions, though, are really good for the current content. Now, the ancient ones are no longer available, but you can find these kinds right here. And there's also different types of epic and mythic quality as well. The mythic one is the equivalent of this one right here. It's just an older potion. But these give specific bonuses towards dragons, and I felt that they at least deserved a spot in this category for buffs because it does buff your damage going out against the dragons. Just like the potions, these scrolls actually stack with other scrolls. These ones, like I said, the blue version, they're no longer available. If you have the epic, the legendary, or mythic version of the scroll, you are able to use those, the mythic giving the same as the old ancient dragon scrolls. And these just give damage reduction. Good to pair up with each other when you're going into your dragon hunts. Health stones, while not considered a buff, they are a consumable, so I felt that they deserved mentioning. there are 3 different categories of them. You have the Mythic that gives 200, the Legendary that gives 100, and then the Epic that gives 50. Another event item that you're able to get is the Siegebreaker's Battle Horn. Now this is the chipped one. This is a consumable version. The other version I'm about to show you is not a consumable version, but rather it just has a cooldown. This one gives, its main ability is to be able to reduce your cooldowns. It also gives you some crit avoidance. So if you're looking at it, 2000 crit avoidance for 30 seconds, and it reduces your recharge time by 5 seconds. And these do, like I said before, these are consumed on use. That's why we have a stack of 99. Now the pristine version gives you double the amount of crit avoidance, but still keeps the 5-second recharge time. And this could be activated, and it'll have a little timer pop up, and it will not deplete from your inventory. You're allowed to use this and then continue using it throughout the dungeon as long as the cooldown goes down. And as you can see, that cooldown is reduced by 1 second every single time you take damage per second. Scrolls of Life, again, not quite a buff, but it does have a spot in this video because it is a consumable. Now, these ones are more useful, honestly, in my opinion, than the Scrolls of Mass Life. When you go down, sometimes it's during like a dungeon where you don't want to have to get everybody back up at the same time because maybe they were waiting to get out of like an AoE. That's why Scrolls of Life tend to be more useful, because the Scrolls of Mass Life tend to get people up at the wrong times and they weren't ready to get up just yet. So while you might think that, you know, Scroll of Mass Life, you're getting a whole entire group up, just being helpful, just be mindful if you go to use that. Make sure that when you give a quick look around, make sure you don't see everybody else and they're not in some AoE or something. But Scrolls of Life are probably going to be the more useful version. Invocation Blessings are next. These you get from praying every single day, and you can accrue a certain amount of these. If we look real quick, I've already done all my praying for the day, but you get one for the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, all the way down until the 6th blessing. And depending on what buff you get, this will give you a specific amount of rating towards one stat. So we're going to go ahead and take one real quick. Actually, before we take one, here's the stats I currently have. That's what our stats currently sit at, and you can see where the rating is as well. So it's giving us power and defense. Unfortunately, it doesn't specify how much. The Invocation Blessing is giving us power and defense at the moment when we took it, but it does give other things as well, like crit strike, crit avoidance, or accuracy awareness. There's different types of buffs that it can give you, and it's random every single time you take one of these. While you might try for a specific type of buff, just be careful. You can go through these pretty quickly. But if you're just kind of using it as a passive buff that, you know, buffs just a random stat, then that's perfect for what these are used for. Next we have this, I'm going to murder this again, Sambocade, or Sambocade. Basically, this stuff gives you 5% additional movement speed. And while you might think that this is just like the event foods, it's actually considered a guild food. And it says only one food may be in effect at one time. If we go back up to an event food, it says only one event food may be used at one time. So these are 2 different buffs, and they can be stacked. Now, there are different types of food buffs. Some of them give like rating towards a stat, like power, for instance. Other ones give hit points as well on top of the ratings for those stats. I prefer this one because it gives 5%. And yes, it's towards movement speed and not a stat, but you're getting 5% stats from this one food buff, whereas the other stuff only gives you maybe a couple hundred rating. So you're not even close to what this gives you in the sense of percent value. So this is, in my opinion, the better one to go with. The Awakened Forger's Box. Now, if you don't have this thing yet, it actually starts at a green quality, and you have to go and you have to get certain types of rods in order to upgrade this. Once you got the rods, you're able to get it upgraded up to Mythic, and this is the stats that it gives you at Mythic. It's usually just power is the first stat that it'll give. Anything after that is either one of those additional ratings, or percentages rather. You'll get an additional percentage at random. So you have crit chance, accuracy, combat advantage, crit severity, action points, and recharge speed. And it chooses one of those at random. You'd place this inside of your potion bar, which is basically where, if you look on my bottom of the screen, you get the epic quality health stones, the legendary ones, and the dragon picture down there. Those are the potion trays. You would assign it to one of those hotkeys. You'd use it, and then it would have a cooldown. And the cooldown, like it says, it's only for 600 seconds, so the buff will last, though, longer than that. So you actually have, if you get like a, say you want crit severity and power, you get that buff, you actually don't have to reuse the Awakened Forger's box when the cooldown reaches its mark. You have an additional, you have 1800 seconds, and it was 600 for the cooldown. So you have an additional 1200 seconds with that. Yeah, this is great for DPS, by the way, having this item. And while it's not considered like a consumable buff, it is a buff, and it needed mentioning. While this one's for DPS primarily, you can use it as a tank. It'll give you some extra DPS stats, and that could help you hold aggro. But what I would recommend is earning the Empowered Chain of Scales. Empowered Chain of Scales, similar to the Forager's box, you have to get it at a green quality. It comes from Chult, specifically Omu. And when you first get the green piece, you have to go and earn different scales to be able to add to it from different content. And there's videos out there, and there's also some Reddit stuff that you guys can look up. But basically, you go and do these steps and get this thing up to Mythic, just like you would the Forger's box. And it always gives you a 3% awareness buff whenever you use it. And it gives you another one at random. Sometimes it's 2% power, defense, crit avoidance, deflect severity, 6% stamina regen, or 2% crit severity. Again, any class can use this. It just comes more in handy for tanks because of that awareness and then the extra stat that you would get at random. The last buff on our list is actually a Diamond Blessing. So these come from Shattered Diamond Shards. These will be what you have to open. Once you get to 100 of them, there's a chance that you'll get Diamond Blessings. And it gives some other things as well. But these Diamond Blessings are a unique consumable buff because they don't have to, be worried about stacking with something else. It's its own buff. And granted, it only has, 15 minutes worth of uptime. It's great to pop during like trials where you're trying to get some extra damage in. And, if you have everybody in the group popping one of these things, that's a lot of extra damage. So now I'm going to show you real quick what it looks like when you take all these buffs. So we've consumed some of our buffs, and now we want to find out where they're located. Underneath your health bar at the top here, if you click A on it, it shows you your active buffs. It shows you your long duration buffs. The reason they're separated is because of the time values in which they give, and you can see them all ticking down there. The Gambler's Fortune, that's coming from the Invocation Blessing. Scroll of Protection, obviously that's from the Dragon's version of that. Same with the Potion there. And you can see that those are active at the same time as the Potency Potion at the bottom, so they do stack. Watermelon Sorbet is active, the Elixir is active, and then everything else that our character has on it. Runic Arrow is coming from a mount. Stronghold Unity is coming from my weapons. Anticipation is coming from my companion enhancement. And then you get the Power of VIP, which is just from having VIP alone. So if you ever want to know your VIP information, you just come over here to VIP information, and it shows you what ranks you get things at. If you're curious at what rank you get the hit point bonus, I believe it's 3. Yeah. So you get Power of VIP adds 1% hit points for every member in your group. You got 5 people in your group, you're getting 5% extra hit points. It's quite a lot too. It adds up. So we're here at the Black Ice Forge, and we were talking about how you could craft those overloads. Specifically the ones that give action point gain, like the Corrupt Black Ice one here. You have to go through a step-by-step process. So if we wanted to make that one, we'd actually have to make the green version first, and it tells you what's required underneath it. Some of the places you can go to get some of this stuff would be like Run or Icewind Pass. You can do heroics there. You can simply just farm some of the black ice there. You can do Kessel's Retreat. I believe the end chests also give you options like the Black Ice Wedge, which is what we're missing currently for making this one. We made one earlier, it's the one we have in our inventory. But if, let's say we were making this one right now, it would make the Corrupt Lethal, the green version. And then if we came down to the blue version, we would need not only the enchantment, but we would also need the wedge. So as soon as you had all that, you'd be able to make it, and then it'd go into your inventory. It lasts 8 hours, so it's pretty significant compared to like the dragon glyphs, 2 hours each. So you got 10 hours for the events, 2 for the glyphs, and then you got an additional 8 for these. And again, you just come to the Black Ice Forge, and you can find everything here that you need to be able to craft these. So as I said before, we were going to go ahead and buy a Scroll of Fate. Well, not specifically a Scroll of Fate, but just a scroll that you can get from like the Winter Festival. And basically, I wanted to do a little demonstration that this will stack with the Dragon Scrolls. So this one gives us 1500 defense. Go ahead and use it. It did apply the defense because we had lesser defense earlier. And if we come up to our buff bar, you can see it says defensive boost. You can see the scroll of Dragon Protection is still active at the top there. And you can see that the defense boost now from the defense scroll is active as well. So they do stack. And those scrolls, if you get them from like the Winter Festival down the road, they give you different types of stats. You can get gold gain, you can get rough AD gain, you can get crit strike, crit severity, power, accuracy, combat advantage, defense, awareness. There's all sorts of scrolls. So if you get them and you want to use them during the same time you're running the Dragon Protection scrolls as well, they do stack. So another reason why you would want to run all these buffs is, again, yes, some of these things cost AD, they have value to them. They're all there and they're designed to help your character, either ability, more damage, more healing. If I'm a tank and I'm taking extra, damage buffs as an example, not only for threat generation, but just to give some extra damage to a boss encounter or even groups of ads. Any extra damage I'm doing is saving the healer that much more heals that he may have to do, or it's giving me that much more threat so that my DPS aren't taking as much damage. It's giving me the extra damage to help melt down that boss a little bit faster. Now, yes, that's not my primary focus is DPS, but it's going to help that go faster by taking these buffs. And that's the whole purpose of this, right? To get through content faster, to get through it less painfully. And so when you take these buffs, it's very important because as a group, if everybody's doing that, it's a lot of extra damage, a lot of extra survivability. Healers are putting out stronger heals. You're not needing heals as often because things are dying faster, again, because of the extra stats and bonus damage you're getting from things. Now, I wouldn't recommend you take every single one of these every single time you go into a dungeon, but these are just some of the better ones you can do. An example of a situational one, like I said before, you got the Dragon Slayer stuff and then these Diamond Blessings. These are very limited. You're not going to want to pop these every single time. When you get your Diamond Shards, the Shattered Diamond Shards, and you get 100 of those, you get one of these Diamond Blessings, it's character bound and you don't get those very often. So take these situational ones whenever you're going into a situation like the dragon hunts. Use those dragon potions and dragon slayer dragon slayer potions and dragon protection scrolls. If you're going into a trial dungeon and it's like a completion group for, say, Tiamat or Crown of Keldagon, even Tower of the Mad Mage, things like that, use these Diamond Blessings. Or just save them for when you want to be competitive with other players. Either way, these are all just different buffs that you guys can use. And there's more in the game. These are just some of the best ones. This is actually all of what the event foods are in the game at the moment too, by the way. So there's no extra event foods out there. Potions, again, you can craft several different types of potions. Scrolls, you can get those that I displayed earlier. You can get those from the Winter Festival. I think that's actually one of the only places you can get scrolls other than these dragon ones. And guild foods, like I said, there was a bunch of different types, but they're not quite as useful as the Sambokade ones. So that's going to wrap up my video. As I mentioned before, smash that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to follow me in more future content, and let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.